Hi, I'm Kirk Bevins, and you're listening to the weekly Dartscast, episode 177.
Hello and welcome to a new episode of the weekly Dartscast. Alex Moss here, joined as always by my co-host, darts statistician Burton, DeWitt. How you doing?
I'm doing all right. How are you, Alex?
I'm doing well, thank you. Episode 177, and you'll have just heard our special guest intro from Kirk Bevins for this week's show. We're back with a episode during the Grand Slam, 4 days down, 5 days still to go, and we're going to hear from a couple of players that are still in the competition into the last 16 this weekend, Nathan Aspinall and Damon Heta. But first, let's look back on the first 4 days, and tonight, as we're talking on this Thursday night, the world champion Peter Wright has gone out. The defending champion, Gerwyn Price, has survived 2 scares to get through to this knockout stage. Now, what have you made of the world number 2 and 3's performances this week?
Yeah, it's a bit bizarre. You look at Gerwyn Price, and he was nowhere near his best up until that match against Ryan Joyce, and really the last few legs against Ryan Joyce, coming back from 4-2 down with 2 breaks of throw to win that match, and ended up averaging 106. And that's what we expect out of Gerwyn Price. Not having to come back from 2 legs down, but, averaging over the ton and hitting the right shots at the right time and winning. But, the first 2 matches, we did get to see some of that. We did get to see most specifically him winning. And okay, he had to survive 4 match starts against Mikuru Suzuki. And okay, it was a very poor match against his World Cup teammate in Johnny Clayton, or a fairly poor match, I should say. There were definitely worse over the few days. But he did get the job done. And that's really all that matters. And when the pressure was on, and when there was the possibility that he was going to be knocked out, because if he lost to Ryan Joyce, he would have finished 3rd in the group, he did get it done, and he lifted his game. He played like the 2-time defending champion he is. And that's why he advanced. Peter Wright, it's kind of in the opposite. He didn't hit at the right times. That's why he lost to Dirk van Dijvenbode. He was abysmal against Evan Peterson on Thursday night in what was not a must-win, but a match that he had to win 3 legs, and he only got to 2. And in many ways, he was fortunate to get to 2. That's how bad he was. But he was absolutely brilliant in beating Ian White and putting Ian White under all that pressure to not just have to win, but to have to win big, to have any chance to get through on the final night. Ian White did win big. Ian White played fantastic. Actually, Ian White played fantastic in both games, but was able to win it. But Peter Wright didn't. Peter Wright had 1 great match and 2 poor ones, similar to Gerwyn Price. But the difference is Gerwyn Price hit at the right times and lifted his game when he needed to. That's why he's going on. Peter Wright didn't.
This is why we love this sport. I mean, you go back to the start of the week before a dart was thrown in the 2020 Grand Slam. We put a question out, one of our questions of the week on Twitter, and it was, who of the big 3 do you make as the favourite to win this Grand Slam? Gerwyn Price, who's won it the last couple of years, 57%. Peter Wright, 40%. Michael van Gerwen, 3%. And we're going to come on to talk about him in a moment. But yeah, as you say, just touching on the 2 players in question there who have had difficult weeks so far, one less so than the other because they've got through, but starting with Gerwyn Price, and he was very fortunate to get through in that first game against Mikuru Suzuki. She had the 4 match starts to get through 2 brilliant checkouts, the 135 on the ball, the 116. So it was hard to watch that her miss the chances to win, because she definitely deserved it. She deserved to get that win, but Gerwyn Price gets the win, and we come down to the final round of group games. And wouldn't it have been ironic, his World Cup partner gets the 5-0 win against the women's world champion, and Gerwyn Price in his post-match after that first game was saying, all I was thinking about was a 5-0, 5-1, being quite disrespectful, you got to say, but gets through that final game. And as you say, towards the end of that game against Ryan Joyce, his level probably stayed the same. I was looking, he was averaging 107 and 4-2 down, averaged around 104 for those final 3 legs. I think he had a 15, a 14 dart a bit. Ryan Joyce did drop his level. I think he averaged 91 over those last 3 legs. But give credit to Gerwyn Price. You have to keep that level going and hope that you get the chances over that short format. And he certainly did that. And with Peter Wright, I mean, wow, what can you say? It's only a couple of days ago he was up on that stage against Ian White, averaging in the 90s, low 90s, changes his darts, goes back to the set that he's had so much success with, and averages near on 120 if you take away those first 6 starts when he was warming up, and then he kicked off with that 180. And then to come into tonight, it was, performance like we've not seen from him for a very, very long time. The 83 average, the the 7 missed starts at the double as well in that fourth leg to go 2-2. Would he have won the game against Devon? I'm not going to say he would have, but you'd have fancied him to get at least that extra leg that he needed to get through to the next round. So not been the best of weeks for either of them, but for Gowen's sake anyway, he's won all 3 games and he can still continue that title defence this weekend.
And keep that winning streak going. Now, you mentioned, we asked you all who you thought of the big 3 was should be the favorite, and the world number 1 of the big 3 only got 3%, but he did enjoy a smooth ride, winning all 3 matches to get through to the last 16. How important is it this weekend, and possibly as well the early part of next week, for Michael van Gerwen?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a big few days coming up, and starting off with his first couple of performances. Start of the week, he was the third favourite with the title sponsors, the bookmaker, to win this title. And after one day, he was the joint favourite with Going Price. After 2 days, he was the favourite, and he is still the favourite to win this title. So he's back in a similar position to what we've seen from him for a number of years now. But looking at those first couple of games, the 105 average against Adam Hunt, 5-0, 103 average, 5-1 against Gabriel Clemens. And okay, there wasn't much coming back at him in those 2 games, but he's still putting those performances which we've come to expect and we've not seen too much of, especially on the TV. I was looking back, those 2 games were his highest averages on TV since March from the UK Open, when he was throwing in those 110 averages in that final day in Minehead. Seems like 8 months ago now, so it's been a long time since we've seen him perform at a level like that. And a few years ago, he won all those titles one year, missed out on the World Championship, and he said, I'd throw all those titles in the bin to get the big one. Well, he's not going to have many titles to throw away if he's going to do that trade this year, if he was offered it to win the World Championship. But I do think it is important for him to win this event, probably more so this event than the next week, the Players' Championship finals, because you look at the format for this, 1st to 10 now, then it's going to be 1st to 16, quarterfinals onwards, a long format. And if he can produce this level over that longer format, okay, tonight's game against Joe Cullen is the third game, didn't perform too well, but the job was done after those 2 games. But if he can perform at that level, the 103, 105 average, get past some tough games that he's going to have, especially going beyond the last 16, Gary Anderson, and then quarterfinal, semi-final, final, he's going to come up against some top players that are going to be playing in some good form. So, yeah, for me, I think definitely this is a big few days coming up for Michael van Gerwen, and to see whether he is indeed back, as some people are saying. I think the jury's still out for me.
Yeah, a jury is still out for me, but he did do something that I've criticized him for pretty much all year, which is not being able to string together consecutive top quality matches. And he did that in the first 2 matches. And it was only a race to 5, but he won 10 of those 11 legs, averaged 106 nearly in whitewashing Adam Hunt, and averaged nearly 104 against Gabriel Clemens. And that's what we needed to see from him, to be able to do that on consecutive nights, because that's what he used to do every single night, every single match. I shouldn't just say night, because he would do it on the Pro Tour as well during the day. We hadn't seen it from him this year until now. And okay, his game did drop substantially against Joe Cullen, and very fortunate to win that 5-3. Cullen making a complete mess of a 200-something point lead when all he needed was one more leg to make it through the group stage. But Michael van Gerwen really had nothing to play for, and he still won 5-3 without having to really get out of, you didn't even have to get into first gear, let alone get out of first gear. So we can write that match off. But we did see something that we hadn't seen from him, which is those consecutive top quality matches. But he needs to do that over that longer format, and needs to do that 4 consecutive nights so that he can lift this title. And that's not something he's done this year. Even when he won the UK Open, he wasn't playing anywhere near his best. We haven't seen him anywhere near his best over an entire tournament for quite some time. This is a huge 4 days or 5 days upcoming for him. It's not just, his season. It's his number 1 ranking that is now under threat. He's no longer the provisional world number 1 after his world title money goes off. That doesn't mean he won't be world number 1, but he's no longer the provisional. If he can lift this title, he goes back to being the provisional world number 1, and he gets himself some confidence heading into the Players' Championship final and the World Championships. But it starts on Saturday. He needs to do well over the next few days. It's vital for his number 1 ranking. It's vital for his season. It's vital for his confidence going into Worlds. And I don't think he has that confidence just based off of a couple wins in the group stage.
Now move on to our first guest on this week's show, and we're joined by the former major winner and the reigning home tour champion, Nathan Aspinall. I'm delighted to say I'm joined by the former major winner, Nathan Aspinall. Thanks again for the time, Nathan. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm very well. How are you?
Doing well, thank you. And we last spoke to you just after the Premier League, the league phase. You qualified for the playoffs, and then just after that you were back outside of the UK. We had the World Series finals, the European tour, and I know you were looking forward to seeing some fans back amongst the crowds again. How pleased were you to see the fans back for those early few weeks?
Yeah, it was good. Obviously, I'm one of the players that are really missing the fans. I think without the fans, it's not, it's not darts. It's not the same. The buzz kind of goes from it. So yeah, it was good to see a few of the fans back, and obviously just kind of you kind of realise how much you do miss them when they've not been there. But yeah, it was definitely nice to see a few faces in the crowd.
And I know when we spoke last time, you were hopeful of seeing some fans back for the playoffs that were due to be at the O2. What was your reaction when you found out it wasn't going to be at the O2 and it was going to be behind closed doors to finish things off?
Yeah, obviously I was I was gutted really. Player's dream to play at Ali Pali, playing the biggest stages of all, and obviously the O2 for me would have been absolutely fantastic. It's in a massive arena, 10,000-15,000 people there. It would have been absolutely brilliant, but it is what it is. At least they made the playoffs, so I was just happy that the event was going ahead, and unfortunately it was behind closed doors, but hopefully one day I'll get to that O2.
Definitely. And looking back at that night, Peter Wright, your opponent in the semi-finals, he was quite bullish about his chances in the media of winning the title. Not that you needed any extra motivation, but how did you feel when you heard those comments?
He gave me, like you say, more motivation to beat him. I've always got on with Peter, and I know there's a lot of digs always happens, before games, after games, between players on social media and in interviews. And I thought, not only to myself, but I thought it was a disrespectful comment to Gary and Glenn, basically writing us off. So he did give me that extra, 2 or 3%, the extra will to beat him, and he knew that. I'm one of the players that you don't really want to annoy, because it kind of brings the best out of me, and that's what it did, and it made it extra special when I did the beating that night.
Yeah, and you mentioned Gary and Glenn. They, of course, played the first semi-final. Obviously, you were busy getting ready to play that second semi-final against Peter, but did you follow that game at all? Because at one point it looked like Gary was going to get over the line, miss the match darts, and Glenn came through in the decider.
Yeah, obviously we have TVs in the back room, so we can see exactly what's going on. And to be fair, I thought I played quite well against Peter, but I think the overall standard on that night was quite poor, especially their game. It wasn't great, but yeah, of course I was having a look, because obviously in my head that's who I was playing in the final, because in my own head obviously I was thinking that I was going to win that game, so I was looking to see who was going to play. But yeah, it was certainly a strange game, and it was very unlike Gary to throw an opportunity away like that, but it starts, and it happens to us all.
And you get past Peter, and it was a very close final against Glenn. He just pulled away at the end. And did you have much time really to get over that one? Because it was only a few days later you were back playing on the European tour over in Germany. Did that help, having a new challenge to focus on straight away?
Yeah, definitely. I think probably the last... Well, when I got my remittance through with my prize money, that was when it kind of hit me, because it wasn't as much as I wanted. But it wasn't a great final. I was really, really nervous in that game. It was my biggest night of my life, and maybe just one step too far, so early in my career. But yeah, I didn't perform very well, but I still made the final. And like you say, I didn't dwell on it too much, because 2 days later I was playing the first round game in Germany. So that tournament that I had after the Premier League final kind of helped me, because I didn't have time to dwell on my mistakes that I made in that game.
And it's been a busy time recently. You had the Winter Series last week with the 5 events, and then just the Sunday off, straight back for the Grand Slam on Monday. I know you guys have got the semi-bubble going on at the moment, but how have you coped with this long stretch of darts that we've got going on at the moment?
To be honest, it's really tough. We've been away quite a lot now. I'm a big family man. I'm missing my kids in Cursor like mad. normally we play, but we're always normally home for a few days. And obviously we can normally go out and I play golf, so have a game of golf or go out for a nice meal. Obviously at the moment we're literally playing darts and going back to your hotel room, so quite lonely. It is quite tough mentally. But like I say, we've played loads of darts recently, and at least we've got something to keep us focused.
I've watched a few of your interviews so far this week, and you mentioned about the table tennis that's going on, that the PDC putting on some other things available for you guys during the downtime. Is that something new this week, or has that happened before during these events that we've had recently?
No, it's something new. We had I think it was either the match play or the Grand Prix. We had the table tennis and like a little small pool table. I thought it was actually provided by the sponsors, but I now found out it was the PDC. So we've got a full-size pool table now, table tennis, foosball, there's a dartboard in there. A few of the lads play cards, poker, and stuff like that. So yeah, it's good of them because, like I say, it's very hard because we've got nothing to do, and certainly, like I say, if you win, obviously you're really happy and you're buzzing. So it's nice just to have a couple of hours relaxing. Like I say, playing table tennis with the lads, it's a bit of fun and it takes your mind away from the darts.
Good to hear. And I imagine really with the Premier League, only the 8 of you for most of it during that 2-week run. Is this bubble a little more relaxed in terms of the atmosphere? Because with the Premier League, we know the race for the playoffs, it was so tight during that whole 2 weeks.
Yeah, it would be quite good, the semi-bubble, if there was like restaurants and stuff that we could go to and like I say, get out of the hotel and but we can't do that at the moment. So we are pretty much in a bubble, to be quite honest with you, because there's nothing we can actually do apart from be in the hotel. So like I say, it's tough, but there's a few lads, we all get on together off the board. We all have our little groups. I knock around with like Chizzy, Smithy, Joe Cullen, plays like that. We all get on, we all have a laugh together, and it's quite nice just to, we do support each other because we're all in the same boat. It's quite tough and we're all missing our families, but we support each other and we do what we have to do.
Looking at your group in the Grand Slam, you started off with a win on Monday against the BDO World Champion Wayne Warren, who we had on the show last week, and we know from your early days breaking through it was the Challenge Tour and the Development Tour. But did you ever play much BDO stuff at all?
No, I think I won like a regional qualifier once to play in the it was either the World or the World Masters qualifiers when it was in maybe Wolverhampton or something like that. We played. I played one event, got beat 3-0, and that was as far as my BDO days went, to be quite honest with you. I played the Development Tour. Instead of doing the BDO circuit, I chose to do the Challenge and the Development Tour. So yeah, I never played BDO. I got through in at the deep end.
Yeah, good stuff. Well, we're going to find out tonight who you're going to play in the last 16, Gerwyn Price, Ryan Joyce or Johnny Clayton. We know you love playing Gerwyn Price. You've had a lot of great games with him in the past. Are you going to be keeping a close eye on that tonight?
Yeah, definitely. I'll put it on in the room. I'll probably watch the darts. Not something I normally do, but I say all the lads that I knock around are playing tonight, so I can't beat anyone at table tennis tonight. So I'll probably watch the darts. I'm gearing up for a game with Gezi, but Ryan's a dangerous player who's playing, so who knows, Johnny could beat Suzuki and Ryan could beat Gezi and Gezi could be out. It's really tight, that group, so I'll have one eye on it, but obviously everyone who's in this tournament, brilliant players, so whatever the outcome, I'm going to have a tough game Friday or Saturday, whenever it is I'm playing.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. And last one, really, before we let you go, we know next week, looking ahead, you've got the Players' Championship final still in Coventry behind closed doors. The World Championship, though, that's the one that everyone really wants to know about as far as fans and everything. What have you heard so far?
I've heard there's no fans. I've not heard that from the boss. Matt's not actually told us that, but rumour has it there is no fans. I think he said on previous interviews he'll make a decision 4 weeks before. That's how much time he needs to obviously sell tickets if there are fans or set everything up if there isn't fans. But with everything that's going on, we're still going to be in lockdown 2nd of December. I can't see how we can have fans, unfortunately, because even though it's still the biggest tournament of the year and it's a World Championship, it will not be the same this year, unfortunately, because I normally have good runs at the Worlds. I'm really looking forward to it this year, but it's going to take a little bit out of it with all the 4,000 or 5,000 screaming fans who are all on the Christmas do drunk.
Definitely. Well, Nathan, always nice to have a catch up with you. Thanks for taking the time out on your off day before you get back playing again, and wish you all the best for the rest of the week in the Grand Slam.
Yeah, brilliant. Cheers, pal. Thank you very much.
Support for the weekly Dartscast is brought to you by Manscaped, the best in men's below-the-waist grooming. Manscaped offers precision-engineered tools for your family jewels. Get 20% off and free shipping with the code ADONIS at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com and use the code ADONIS. Your balls will thank you. Now, if you excuse me.
Thanks again to Nathan for joining us, and a bit more Grand Slam to chat. What have been your highlights really from the opening 4 days in Coventry so far?
Well, I think you have to start and maybe even finish and just only say Dimitri Vandenberg, because boy, were those 3 scintillating performances from him. He had the best goal differential of anyone, 1 leg better than Michael Van Gerwen. Granted, as we just discussed, Van Gerwen took a match off because he didn't have much to play for against Joe Cullen. But Dimitri Vandenberg didn't take a match off. Dimitri Vandenberg had the highest average in the history of this tournament. That's after missing a few match starts. He could have averaged 120 against Ricky Evans. For a while, he was doing just as well against Nathan Aspinall before tailing off in the final couple of legs to still average 101. And then, he only averaged 104 against Wayne Warren. He lost 1 leg in each match, 3 legs total, averaged 106. He joined Michael Van Gerwen and Phil Taylor is the only people to average over 105 across a group stage in the Grand Slam. He was unplayable. He was at 3 times he was on a 9, or 4 times he was on a 9, missing a double as well once for it. There was not much he did wrong. Now, let me take that back. There was nothing he did wrong. If he played like that at the World Match Play, he would have won the title on the Friday. He wouldn't have had to even wait till the final. That's how well he played. There's not much more you can say about him. Some other highlights, we talked about some of the groups of death, but I have to throw something out to someone in one of the groups that we talked about being the group of death. And I think my exact words were no disrespect to Adam Hunt, but he's not the other people in this group. Well, he's not, because he's advancing and Gabriel Clemens and Joe Cullen aren't. So I think a story like that, especially coming through what was just a brutal group, and okay, he lost 2 matches, but he got it done when he needed to, and he got it done with all the pressure was on him, coming off of 2 losses, coming off of a last leg decider loss, to get up and play his best match against Gabriel Clemens and do just enough, and then to get on. I think that's a really good story, because he was probably one of the longest shots to get through his group when play started, and it was definitely the longest shot entering the final day who did get through, but he did. And I think that speaks something to his character, and also speaks something to me underselling someone, because I definitely did last week, and he proved me wrong.
Well, some appreciation minutes there for Dimitri Vandenberg and Adam Hunt. I don't think we've had one for Adam Hunt so far on this show, and like you, I got a real with both of those, because starting with Dimitri, it was majestic stuff from him so far this week, and probably forgotten about him a little bit given what we've seen tonight. Okay, he's had the day off. He finished his group games yesterday, so maybe he will come back tomorrow a little bit under the radar. People have forgotten about him a little bit, but if he carries on playing like he did in the group stage, then we could be on this show next week talking about him as a 2-time major champion. And as you mentioned there with Adam Hunt, he had a great game as well against Joe Cullen. His second game just got down here. Adam had 300 plus checkouts. Joe Cullen 1-6-4 finish to win that game 5-4, but 2-0 down against Gabriel Clemens. Needed to win 5-2, win 5 legs in a row against Gabriel, who we all know is a top class player, and he did it. First win on TV since the 2012 UK Open, so it has been 8+ years for him since he's got that win on TV, and now all of a sudden he's in the last 16 of one of these big TV events. So yeah, it's a great story for him, and 2 moments that have been brilliant to watch so far this week, and a few others as well. Got to give a mention to one of our guests you're going to hear from in a moment, Damon Heta, that sudden death game that we had in his group. He had to win that game, but it's between him and Jermaine Wattamina. The winner got through, and both players having chances in that deciding leg. It was a lot of drama, and Gary Anderson, Ryan Searle, that was another winner-takes-all game in the group stage, and a lot of people were backing Ryan Searle given the injury problems that Gary Anderson's had this week with his knee, and Ryan as well playing some excellent stuff, averaged 102 in that game and just lost out 5-3 in the end. Gary getting the bullseye to go through. So there's been some exciting stuff, and it is one of those events that is very unique in terms of the format. This group stage, first to 5, is kind of like a 100 metre, 200 metre sprint. Now we're going into first to 10, more like a 400, 800 metre. And then we go to the first to 16, which is kind of your 1,500, 3,000 metre sort of range. So these players have got to go from that to then longer formats, which we're going to get into now, which is going to make it interesting to see who can go all the way and get past those longer formats, get to the 10, the 16 and win the title. But yeah, first 4 days, there's been some good stuff, and it bodes well really for the rest of the week and start of next week.
Well, I'm going to correct you. It's your 3,000 meter. For me, I think I can go a little bit further. Definitely can go further than I can. Definitely go run further than I can go in a darts tournament. That's for sure. That said, speaking of not going far in the darts tournament, it was an early exit for the 2 BDO invited players, Makura Suzuki and Wayne Warren, the 2 defending and last ever world champions, and likely the last ever BDO invited players. What are your favorite memories, though, that you'll keep from the PDC versus BDO chapter of the Grand Slam over the last 14 years?
Yeah, there's quite a few actually, and when I think of the Grand Slam, it is one of those tournaments that really got my interest in darts. Probably said on this show before, early days following the sport, I didn't have Sky at all, so for me watching the darts, it was either going around my grandparents who had Sky to watch it, or having to make do with when it was on the BBC with the Lakeside and sometimes the World Masters. But when this tournament got introduced, 2007, it was on ITV, so it was a free-to-air tournament. So yeah, lots of good memories from those early days before it came over to Sky, watching it on ITV and seeing all these different players that I've not seen as much of before. But as far as the BDO, yeah, there's lots of memories from those early days. Go back to the very first couple of years. Gary Anderson was in this tournament as a BDO player, and one of the best games in the history of the Grand Slam, that 2008 semi-final, him and Terry Jenkins both averaging, I think Jenkins was 102, Gary Anderson 105. So it was a quality game over 30 legs. If you can find it on YouTube, go and give it a watch if you get a spare 45 minutes, hour, or however long the game was. I can't remember now, but plenty of other ones in there as well. I'll give a mention to Ted Hankey in those early days, his first taste of the PDC in the crowd, and not quite getting to grips with the crowd. The crowd went against him a little bit, and again, that's a good one to go and watch on YouTube for that. It's entertainment value at least anyway. Even the other side of things with Ted, okay, we loved it when he had the interaction with the crowd, but his darts did the talking as well. I remember a game he had with Phil Taylor one night in the group stage that went all the way, and he got over the line and beat him. That had that big game feel to it, even though it was a group game. Seeing them two go up against each other, a rare occasion on TV, was a good one. A couple others in more recent times. Of course, got to give a mention to Martin Adams when this tournament first got introduced. For so many years, he turned down the invite. He didn't want to play. He wasn't interested. Then all of a sudden, he comes into it. 2015, wins all 3 of his group games, gets through to the last 16, and he had a brilliant time playing in it. So that was nice to see. I think Andy Fordham played that year as well. But yeah, there's been lots of good times, and sadly, this is going to be the end of it for the BDO players. But there's been a lot of great times watching these guys go up against the best from the PDC.
But speaking of Ted Hankey, that first time that he really went on a run, I think he made the quarterfinals. Do you recall who beat him?
I think that might have been Mark Walsh. I'll have to double check though.
I think you're right. Yeah. I mean, unfortunately, that was a couple months before I first ever watched darts, because my first world championship that I watched was the 2012 World Championships, and this would have been just a month before that. So I just missed out on one of the great moments in the history of sport. Beyond that, some of the memories that I do have, sticking to PDC versus BDO. I mean, you can't get past Scott Waite's performances, making 3 semifinals or better, 2 finals, and lifting the trophy once from 8-0 down against James Wade, the most dangerous lead in darts, 8-0. You mentioned as well the debut was it 2015, after turning down so many times to the point that they stopped inviting him But when Wolfie finally made his debut and really just soaked up the PDC atmosphere and soaked up the crowd, and was probably the most popular player in the field, in a field that included Phil Taylor, in a field that included Michael Van Gogh and Gary Anderson, it was Martin Adams who the crowd took most to, because they'd never, many of them grew up watching him on the BBC, but they never seen him play in PDC, or at least hadn't seen him play in the PDC in 14 years. I'm also going to throw out just one more. It was, I wish I had written down ahead of time because I might have the year wrong. I can't remember if it was 2015 or 2016. So y'all are going to bear with me while I double check this, because I want to get the year right, because it was 2015. It deserves to have the year right. And it was Andy Fordham's return to televised darts after his health problems and everything. He won through his qualifier, for those who don't remember, that took place at the World Masters, but the qualifier was going on while Sky Sports was broadcasting the World Grand Prix. He was in a last leg decider, and the commentators interrupted the PDC broadcast of the World Grand Prix to mention the fact that Andy Fordham had won the BDO qualifier to the Grand Slam. And then Andy Fordham goes out and plays Adrian Lewis in that first match, and it's like the Andy Fordham of old. Okay, he lost 5-2, but Adrian Lewis played brilliantly. Andy Fordham didn't do much wrong, averaged nearly 100. And it didn't really click from him after that. Okay, he did win a match, but he was nowhere near that. But that match against Adrian Lewis, in his return, to play like that was one of the great moments in darts, especially for someone like me who knows about Andy Fordham, but it never got to see him because he was before my time. That's one of the memories that I'll never forget.
If you guys listening, let us know what your favourite moments are involving the BDO players in the Grand Slam. Well, let's move on to our final guest on this week's show, and another player who's going to be in the last 16 of the Grand Slam this week on his debut. It is Damon Heta.
I'm delighted to say I'm joined by the Heat, Damon Heta. Thank you very much for the time again. Damon, how you doing?
Yeah, good, mate, good.
Now, we had you on the show just after the Autumn Series, your first PDC ranking title. You then went into the World Series finals. You played on the Euro Tour as well. What was it like playing on a stage again and with a little bit of a crowd as well?
Yeah, it was very enjoyable. It's good to get back on the stage. Whether it was it's very nerve-wracking when there's only a small crowd, but I just enjoyed it.
And we also speculated whether you'd get the call up for the World Cup with Kyle Anderson staying back home in Australia. What was your reaction when you did get that call to say that you were going to be in the World Cup?
As soon as I found out I was in, I was well over the moon, you know what I mean? It was all looking my way that I was going to go, and I was just going to give it my all and just represent Australia like I can.
Come back to the World Cup in a moment, but away from the main tour, you've been playing a bit of online darts as well. We saw you had that 118 average on the PDC home tour, and Simon Whitlock has mentioned about how you two have been playing a lot of online darts. How much has that platform helped you, especially this year, given the year that we've had?
Yeah, especially it's the match practice, isn't it? And I took the online darts as a serious thing because you weren't getting it anywhere else, and with the other players that were playing in it, like Whitlock, you know what I mean? You'd see their name up there, and you would video call them, obviously. I would take it as a serious practice and just try and get your head around that, where a lot of players probably couldn't do that, but I took it on board as a positive and not a negative.
And back to the World Cup, it was an ambitious event for the PDC to put on with the 64 players, 32 countries, all from around the world, and we saw Austria just before the event go into the lockdown. Was there any concern that the event would still go on? It might not happen given all that was going on at that time?
Yeah, there was a lot of changing with flight accommodation and just how to go about it. Every day was a new story. So it was we didn't think it was going to be on it. Most of the time, I just thought it was going to be canned. But fair play for everyone, like all the countries, to get there and compete. That was it was insane. So I didn't get the full experience, obviously, with like the crowd, because when you watch it on like YouTube or you look at previous World Cups, and it's such a big atmosphere. But nonetheless, I was loved to be a part of. Enjoyed being a part of it all.
I think I'm right in saying, as far as the TV events that we've had recently with the no crowd, was that your first taste of that? So how did you kind of adjust to that with playing on the stage with all the cameras but no fans being there?
Yeah, I quite felt more comfortable, to be honest. It was just, you just had that buzzing fake crowd, and you're literally up there just playing, you're just playing darts, and there's not too much more else to worry about. Yeah.
A proud moment, I'm sure, putting on that green and gold for Australia to partner alongside Simon. You beat Ireland and Poland, just fell short to Wales in the quarterfinals, and I personally thought that quarterfinal was the two best teams going up against each other. Did you feel that way going into it?
Yeah, it was quite a match. I just knew if we could just I went for, obviously we won the ball and we went first, and I thought that was a major bonus, good plus going in, and we were both psyched for the game, like for pretty much for the whole tournament. Every game was just like a good psyched feeling, and we just wanted to do our country proud, and yeah, it was such a clutch game. It was such a good game. I really enjoyed it, and it's just made me hungry to go. Yep, next year we'll do better, I reckon. Definitely,
yeah. I'm sure there'll be many more battles like that. And back to the UK after that, and I believe your first PDC tournament in England since the whole lockdown back in March with the Winter Series. A great week as well for you, finishing third on the list, and a final as well. Were you happy with how the week went?
Yeah, I played really well in that Winter Series, just so steady, and it didn't feel like, I didn't feel under pressure at all. I felt really good coming in. It's been a lot of darts. I think just the last couple of days, maybe it's just taken its effect where I'm missing by a few millimetres, but I'm just hoping that this last next day off or so will help out, and I'll come back just the way I started in the Winter Series.
Yeah, you say a lot of darts, especially for the players like yourself that have played in the World Cup. They're like coming up to 2 weeks now, not a lot of rest. How have you found this run of events and making sure that you're prepared as well as you can be for each day when you have to play?
Yeah, it's just you just get in a routine, don't you? And you keep, and if it works, you just keep sticking to the same routine. You just do what you can do, and that's what all this. You practice most days for hours on end, and this is where you got to trust your throw and trust what you can do when you're up there, and hopefully it all pans out.
We'll come on to this week and the Grand Slam in just a second, but what has life been like in the bubble, especially today when you've got that day off, which you probably needed given all the darts that we've had, but what's life like in the bubble and having to adjust to the scenario that we've got at the moment?
Yeah, I think I'm pretty lucky because I've got my wife here with me, which makes it a bit easier. Where some players are just on their own, or everyone sort of has their mates and stuff as well. So it's not too bad. They have got a couple of things here with pool table and ping pong table and stuff like that, just to keep a little bit of entertainment. Or you can go out for a walk. You still can leave because we're in the semi bubble, so you can just go out for a walk. Or so I think everyone's just focused on the tournament and all tasks ahead.
And your debut in the Grand Slam this week, when the draw came out, you tweeted what a group, and it looked like a great group on paper. Yourself, James Wade, Glenn Durrant, Jermaine Wattimena, and yesterday when we're talking a winner takes all game in that final group game against Jermaine, and you said you spent a lot of time with Jermaine. How hard was that game going into it?
Yeah, I think just the group itself was more. It's one of those mental struggle groups. I dare say they're everyone in that group. Glenn and Jermaine, like we are a bit tight nipped. Like I said, we eat a lot of meals and sit down and hang out together. So I just really had to just try and stick to my own game and get the win. And that's what I did.
And it was a thrilling game to watch. I'm not sure what it was like to play in, especially those final moments, but you come through 5-4, your first last 16 in a major ranking event. How pleased are you to get that milestone ticked off now?
Oh yeah, stoked. I just know that I'm there or thereabouts, you know what I mean, and I can go on. It's all, I feel it inside that I can just keep going on and just bring my more than average game to the TV and just keep bringing it, and put guys under pressure that are above me in the rankings and stuff, and hopefully I can just keep doing what I'm doing and shoot up as quick as I can and start being that recognised player.
You're in the last 16, and when we're talking, we're not quite sure who your opponent's going to be in that round. Devon Peterson, Peter Wright, Dirk van Dijvenbode, that group's going to be sorted out tonight. Are you going to be watching much of that tonight or keeping an eye on it at all?
Yeah, I'll watch it. I like watching the darts, so yeah, of course.
And lastly, of course, you're getting close to that top 64 now. Of course, we've got a couple of more events coming up this year. How have you feel like you've settled into life as a professional now? I know it's been an up and down year, but do you feel like you're settling into the task that you've got?
Yeah, I'm taking it all on board because I'm still, I've got heaps to learn. You know what I mean? I'm still fresh and green, so to make like the 64 within the first year, I'm pretty happy with that. Hopefully I should get there. I dare say. But then obviously from there I'll be looking towards 32, 16 and so on. But no, settling well. I've got everything here. I'm all set up to play darts, and that's what I'm here to do.
We always appreciate your time, and best of luck for the rest of this week and the rest of the year.
Yeah, too easy. Thanks, Alex.
Thanks again to Damon for joining us, and we'll finish up the show. Just a quick touch on our sponsors, Low Six. Appreciate their support. They do, of course, present this show, and we did a contest on Monday for the opening day of the Grand Slam. We once again were hoping to have one of you listeners get 16 out of 16 and join us on the show this week as our guest tipster. Unfortunately, not quite happening this time. 14 out of 16. We had a 9-way tie for the £100 prize pot. And of course, everyone wants to know, how did we get on between us? Well, it went down to the final game of the night. I had Devon Peterson. Burton, you had Ian White, and went my way on this occasion, 11-10 to me. But we're going to have another contest over the weekend. We're going to have the 8 games from the Friday session and the Saturday session, the last 16. And just looking at this lineup, okay, it's not going to be the 16 that we're asking for, but fair to say if people get 8 out of 8 on this lineup, then they're doing pretty well. And not quite sure what the order of players at the moment, but we'll pick out the top 4 games in the bracket to make our picks for on this show anyway. And we'll start things off with the top seed, Michael van Gerwen against Gary Anderson. How do you see this first game going?
I mean, the question, it's the same one that we discussed earlier, is can Michael van Gerwen string together consecutive good matches? Well, he did, but then he had his off match. So you think he's probably going to bounce back. But Gary Anderson, got better as the group stage went on and as the pressure increased on him. But definitely the injury didn't seem to be doing him much good. And he has to go into this second favorite. And I think he'll leave it as second best. So I'm going to go for the world number 1 to get over the line. We'll say 10-6.
Yeah, I want to go the other way, but like you, I can only see this going one way, and that is to Michael van Gerwen. And Gary Anderson, he's had an interesting week so far, it's got to be said. His post-match interview in his first game, okay, it's not going to go down as the best interview that he's gave in Grand Slam history, but it's probably going to go down as the second. If you haven't watched it, go and watch it. But he's somehow got through this group. After that game against Simon Whitlock, the second one, you could see on the stage he was struggling with his knee injury, but managed to come through that final group game, as I mentioned earlier, against Ryan Searle, and played very well to get through that one. But going up against Van Gerwen in a longer race, first to 10 legs, I just can't see it on this occasion. So yeah, like you, I'm going with MVG. Second game then, and it's the player who's finished top of that group with Gary Anderson, Simon Whitlock, against the man who's come through with only 1 win in the group stage, Adam Hunt. How do you see this game going?
Do want to point out that I did say that the Group B was probably one of the most difficult to pick because you could make a case for most of them. And there were a few other groups that I said that about. And in the end, you could have made a case for all of them. Even Adam Gullis, who didn't win a match, could have easily won all 3 of his, losing 2 last leg deciders and missing a trick, you would say, against Gary Anderson in the match that Gary Anderson really looked bad. But Simon Whitlock deserved to win that group. Simon Whitlock played 3 very good matches and continued what has really been a renaissance of a year for him, especially in the televised tournaments. He hasn't been as good on the floor, which is why he didn't qualify for the World Grand Prix, but did get into the field. But he's been just fantastic when he's been on television. That's why he topped the group. And Adam Hunt, I gave him the appreciation minute earlier, and it wouldn't surprise me if he goes out and wins this match. But I think Simon Whitlock is playing like a man who has something to prove and is proving it. I'm going to go Whitlock to win at 10-8.
I'm going to have to stick with you again. We've said on this show this year, Simon Whitlock has been one of those players that has had a renaissance year, and he's had 2 wins against Michael van Gerwen in 2 of the big Sky TV events, the World Match Play and the World Grand Prix. And if our predictions are right, we're going to see a third meeting between them in the quarterfinals in a few days' time in this Grand Slam, which will be a very interesting game to watch, especially over a race to 16 legs on this occasion. Yeah, Adam's done fantastically well to get through the group. Not many people were giving him a chance to do it, but When his back was against the wall, 2-0 down, he only needed to win 5 legs in a row against a player in that top 32, and he does it. So, and he played very well to do it as well, 95 average. If he can play to a similar level, I think he will get chances. And it's just about whether he can take them. I think Simon is going to be the favourite, of course, and yeah, I'm going to go with him as well. The third game then coming up in this top half of the draw, Michael Smith, the player who's finished top of Group C, against Rob Cross, a battle of Team England. How do you see this game going?
Yeah, and we've already had a battle of Team Wales in the group stage. Could get another battle of Team Wales in the quarterfinals. You know, credit where credit's due for Rob Cross. It's been a bad year, but that performance against Luke Humphreys in a winner-take-all match is the best we've seen from him probably all year, and definitely the best we've seen from him when the pressure was on. And he needed to get some confidence out of that match because Michael Smith has just been, well, man on fire for the last couple weeks since that World Cup final defeat, winning those 2 Pro Tour events, and then just blitzing his group, averaging over 100 in each match, averaging nearly 107 against Krzysztof Ratajski. He's been almost unplayable. He's been unplayable in this tournament, and he's been almost unplayable for the last couple weeks. Rob Cross needs to be able to lift his game, or Michael Smith is going to have to regress. I could definitely see it happening, but I'm not going to predict it to happen. So I'm going to go Michael Smith to get over the line 10-5. But this is an opportunity for Rob Cross because he showed what he's made of against Luke Humphreys. Now he needs to show the 3-time major champion that he is against Michael Smith.
Well, I promise I'll go different on the last game, regardless of what I've got written down on my piece of paper here. But yeah, I'm going with Michael Smith as well. It's been some promising signs from him this week, as we spoke on the last show. His 2 wins that he had in the Winter Series, ending that long run without a title. And was this going to be the week? Was this going to be the tournament for him to go all the way? And he hasn't looked very good in those games, especially in that group as well. He's performed well in all 3 games. The 102.5 average in the first game, then the 102 again, 102.5 again against Jose de Sousa in the second game. And then tonight as well, game that he performed well in again, 106, almost 107 average. It's looking good for him. He's not quite, even himself, you can see on stage, in doubles, he's not quite getting them as quickly as he wants to on occasions. He is beating himself up a little bit, but he's able to get himself back together and focus on the next 3 darts. And if he can keep doing that, he's going to take some stopping this week. And Rob Cross done well to get out of the group. He had a tough game in that second game against Dave Chisnall, but come through that winner takes all against Luke Humphreys, who played well himself as well. So he'll be up for it as well. But yeah, I'm going to go Michael Smith as well. And our last game that we're going to pick on the show is Dave Chisnall against Jose de Sousa. How do you see that game going?
So the question then becomes, who do I want you to have to pick? And, you know, Jose's really just, he's had some rotten luck this year in the televised events because he's played well and gone out, usually early on. This time he at least gets through the group stage. So maybe his luck is finally turning. But he goes against Dave Chisnall. And, you know, the thing I said about Chizzy on our show last week is that he's been really inconsistent this year. He didn't have a great performance across those 3 matches. He never hit top gear. And in fact, he maybe even never got into second gear. So maybe that big performance is coming. And that would basically sum up Jose de Sousa's season, for him to average 103 or something, only for Chizzy to average 109 and beat him 10-5. But I'm not going to pick it. I'm going to go for this, at least to get for de Sousa to get through to his first major quarterfinal. He's already through to only a second or third last 16. This will be his first trip to a major quarterfinal. He'll go against Michael Smith in the quarterfinals and probably have things revert to the norm of him playing brilliantly and losing. But he'll get past Chizzy. So I'm going to go for the Portuguese number 1 to win this. We'll say 10-8.
Yeah, I did have Jose down on my piece of paper, but I did promise to go the other way, and I will go the other way. I will go with Dave Chisnall now, try and make a case for him to get the W on this occasion. But it is hard because, as you say, he played very well in this group stage. He's averaging 99 and 100 so far. And yeah, you touch on his TV form. Last 16 of the European Championship, hit a 9-darter on the way. Last 16 in the World Cup, and now into another last 16. That's 3 in a row on the TV. as you say, not quite got to that quarterfinal stage yet, but you kind of get the feeling that it is only a matter of time. It is that one performance away from getting to a stage that he's never got to before. But as much as I wanted to back him, I'm going to go the other way. I'm going to go with Dave Chisnall. He has won all 3 of his games in the group without looking like he's getting into top form. And even that first game against Luke Humphreys, Luke had chances to beat him and will be kicking himself probably because he'll look back on this week as a chance to get through that group stage, get into the last 16. But Dave was the one that took the chances when he needed to. He got through, has bags of experience, and as we know, we've been watching him for years. All it can take is one big performance, one flick of the switch, and we could see him go on a 180 spree and blow Jose away. We just don't quite know. But yeah, I'll go the other way. So I will go with Dave for that one. And as I said, we're going to have a contest from our guys at Low Six over the next couple of days. So get involved in that. It's download the Low Six app, UK residents only, 18 plus, T&Cs apply. Please gamble responsibly, begambleaware.org.
Anything else for this week?
As always, got to say a big thank you for everyone for listening. Big thank you to our guests as well, Damon and Nathan, taking out a few minutes to chat mid-tournament as well. I don't think we've done that too many times on the show, so appreciate them having a chat with us. Also, I want to give a mention as well. Had a chat to a couple of other people that are not on the show this week, but managed to get a few minutes with Richard Ashdown and Steve Brown and get their thoughts really from a WDF MAD JDC perspective on what could happen to the potential available spots for the Grand Slam next year with no BDO. So that is on our website if you want to go and check that out, weeklydartscast.com, see what they're thinking about it. It's an interesting discussion really going into next year, so go and check that out. And I'm sure we'll be back next week, look back on the Grand Slam, who did eventually go on and win the title, and then look ahead to our last event before the World Championship.
Yeah, and we get closer to episode 180, we're going to have to get out the Quadro board so that our episodes will start meaning something going forward. But thanks to all of our guests. Thanks for all you for listening. Hope you're enjoying the Grand Slam. There's still a few more days of it. We'll be back, as Alex said, afterwards to recap it. But until then, just going to have to hang tight.